So this, I think, is an important story because this, to me, is obviously the Conservatives Party champions of privatisation, and obviously that's what they intend to do with the NHS. We've seen these tactics before in the past. They're doing exactly what they did in the past to the NHS now. And there's no more clear failure of their policies of privatisation than the railways. You only have to look at the Hadfield rail disaster. What had happened was when they decided to privatise the rails, rather than maybe parceling it all together, what they did was, well, you can run these certain sections of the track, and then they're going to have another completely different separate company maintain that track. Now, of course, this didn't go out to the whole network, as we have now with Network Rail. These were individual companies maintaining different sections of the track. Now, what happened? Well, there were arguments over certain specific areas of the track. Like, for example, who maintains the border of this track? Is it this company? Is it this company? So this led to areas of the track that were, here's where one company starts and here's where the other company ends. So there's this section of track that just wasn't maintained, and that's what led to the Hadfield rail disaster. Again, a massive failure of privatisation on the part and the fault of the Tories. And so now I'm really heartened to see that now people are starting to go after the rail companies like Northern. Northern is an absolutely diabolically awful company that has the franchise for that section of track, preferably Northern Rail. It's in the name. Yeah, they're absolutely awful. I tell you now. There are numerous stories of passengers and people who rely on these trains to try and get to and from to work, people missing important business meetings, you name it, they're all out there. So one thing, if you really want to do it, and I highly suggest this is what really needs to happen, is we need to take back public ownership of the railways. We can easily done. It's very popular. People want this to happen. And the first thing we do is we decrease fares. We sort out what the hell is going on. And there needs to be a massive report and all this. Let's go to Japan. Bring some experts in from Japan. Let's get this sorted out. Germany as well. Germany has a good railway system as well. Let's get as many experts from all these different areas and go, how can we improve our system? What can we do to improve it and bring costs down? So, onto the story. So, passengers protest demand that Northern Rail be stripped of its franchise, and absolutely it should. So, long-suffering passengers using one of the UK's worst-performing train companies have staged a rush-hour protest demanding it be stripped of its franchise. Commuters gathered outside Victoria Station in Manchester to draw attention to the regular delays, cancellations, and overcrowding on its services run by Northern. In fact, overcrowding. Yeah, I've been having to go to Leeds recently for meetings. I tell you now, the Sheffield to Leeds line, diabolical. Rush hour, it's awful. You're crammed in like a sardine. It's absolutely awful. Cancellations. Yep. Calling upon upcoming New Year price increases and insult to passengers who already pay over the odds for a very poor service. To get to Leeds, it's £11 for a return. That might not sound a lot, but when I was younger, it was only £7, and that was in the early 2000s. So yeah, that may not sound a lot, but if you think about it, £11 a day, that's quite a lot. It's ridiculously expensive, and that's going to go up in the new year. So protesters and members of the Facebook group Northern Resist demand that fares be reduced by at least a third until Northern Rail achieves the punctuality target of 70% on trains on time, and no more than 30% of services are short-formed. These are those operating with fewer carriages than necessary. Figures from the Office of Rail and Road show that only 56% of Northern services were on time, and in some places they were in last quarter. Some protesters claim that their journeys have been delayed every day since before the summer. That's not. Yeah, I trust me. As Northern Rail passenger, I can definitely say that is true. According to Northern's own data, I haven't got home once on time since May, says Becca Hans, a project manager from Stowbridge in West Yorkshire, who commutes to Manchester. It really does ruin your life. It might sound like a massive overstatement, but if you never know when you're going to get to work on time or when you will be home, it's a constant downer. And she was carrying a sign saying, "I'm dreaming of a decent railway." Christine Roberts joked that she now received more money in refunds from Northern than from her salary. "I claim back £1.42 for every 15-minute delay, and in November they paid me back £60, with another £40 outstanding," she said. "The franchise should be given to a company who knows how to run a railway. Northern couldn't run a bath." And that's not unusual, by the way, for that refund. There are people out there who have who Northern owe money to, who are at least in the hundreds of pounds that Northern owes them, because that's how delayed their trains are. Ruan Marsh, a nurse, said that she had recently given in and bought a car after enduring years of delays from St Helens to Manchester. "I prefer to use public transport because of my environmental ideals. But I had to buy a car in August. I just couldn't take it anymore." Julie Parkinson, who commutes from Wigan to various universities in the northwest, said that fewer than half of her trains were on time. She also objected to the absolute filthy seats and toilets which still empty out onto the track on some of the older Pacer services, which are being phased out. "No wonder there are tomatoes growing between the rails," she said. She said that the government should start investing more in rail services in the north of England. They are so considerably underfunded when compared with London and the south east. The government's own transport spending per person in London is 2.5 times more than it is in the north of England, according to the analysis from the centre-left think tank IPPR North. Treasury data shows that in 2018 to 19, £903 was spent in the capital for every resident, while in the north it was just £376. And people say that there's no north-south divide. Passengers pay over the odds for a poor service while shareholders receive billions, complained Parkinson. At the weekend, rail unions claimed that shareholders in private rail companies receive $1.2 billion in dividends over the past 5 years. Analysis by the TUC also showed that while fares had risen by 46% over the last decade, the average weekly wage had only gone up by 23%. On the 2nd of January, fares will increase by 2.7%. which the protest organiser Kate Ainsley said added insult to injury and hit commuters at a time when they're at their poorest. She echoed a call by Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, who had repeatedly demanded that Northern, owned by the German state railway company Deutsche Bahn, be stripped of its franchise. A spokesperson for Northern said, "It's on record that the Northern franchise has faced several material and unprecedented challenges in the past couple of years, outside the direct control of Northern. The most significant of these is the ongoing late delivery of major infrastructural upgrades. The Northwest electrification was more than 2 years late. We're delivering the biggest transformation of local rail for a generation, with 33 of our 101 new trains now in service and driver training now taking place on dozens of more trains right now. So that's Northern. Yeah, it's so bizarre, and like I say, you see this thing of it's owned by Deutsche Bahn, and here's the thing: everything I've read about them, they seem to be doing fine in Germany, but for some reason Northern is just can't run a goddamn train. And most of it is right. It's infrastructural challenges that they don't have out of their control. But there you go. That's the damning thing about road railways. So hopefully, if Jeremy Corbyn gets in, we'll privatise the railways.